This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. The show's picking up, man. To get on. And welcome to the best hour or so in the universe. It's Reasonable Doubt. I'm Adam Carolla. It's Mark Garrigus over there in studio.
I was looking forward to this. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a week.
I know.
You've been very busy. Yeah, it's been a week.
I've been busy.
Why? This one is supposed to slow down.
My problem is I have two problems. I used to really work, and so I don't ever feel like telling jokes or working on an animated thing or stand up or whatever, lecture, corporate podcast, book. It doesn't really feel like work. I had such a donkey's eye view of work that I thought work always meant moving stuff.
Right. Like physical labor.
I wasn't educated or anything. Work meant there's a bunch of shit over there. You got to put it over there. And that's how work went. Right. And so the sitting around and talking.
That's why one of the reasons I went into the law, I used to follow my father around and watch him go into a courtroom after having ate donuts at they put donuts and coffee out in the DA's office, and then he goes to court and he shoots his mouth off, and then they take a 2-hour lunch. I said, this is not what I thought work was all about. I mean, when I'm throwing papers or I'm scooping ice cream or I'm moving rocks out of a wash, that to me is work.
Yeah, I concur. So we had a good baseline of actual work. And then the other thing about work, our kind of work, is you never really know when the next work is.
Right.
And so there's a little element of making hay while the sun shines, because if you work at the post office, then there's more work Monday, and then comes, but you don't know exactly in our line. Now, look, if it was the same when I was a carpenter, I was good, so work would sort of keep coming my way. But if somebody said, what will you be working on in 9 weeks? I'd go, I have no idea. I don't have that yet. So you end up tending to go, oh, I'll do that, up the river a little bit. Yeah, sign me up for that. Yeah, because there's nothing is set in stone. Although if you go back and look, you've never stopped working for, decades.
And it's so funny because I was, when you go to get a bank line or a credit line or something like that, they always want you to prognosticate. And it's not like when you do contingency or flat fee work as a different from hourly where you've got clients or on retainer. It's very hard. You have to explain to a banker exactly how I'm prognosticating it 1 or 3 years out. And it's like, how do I know? How do I know what's going to walk in the door when somebody's going to settle? Or
you know what I always want to say to them? I just want to go, I pay my bills. That's all. Just go back and look. Let's not prognosticate. Exactly. I would like this. You do that. You get paid. That's how I work. That's all. That's the only way I've ever worked. And you can go back 30 years and you can take a look at it. Take a look at it. If you
right. And if I don't pay, it's because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Right. Period. End of story. I love when guys say, well, either you pay this or I'm going to report you or something. And I say, well, report me, okay, but I get it. But you didn't do what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, the banks. Well, I was picturing a version of life that had like Mr. Drysdale from the bank, and you'd have these handshake deals. And
right,
you'd
where
be
you
like,
walk in and
Mr. Garrigus, what is it you need? Not the part where they have to go check the FICO score every 10 seconds and run it up everyone's flagpole and get everything in triplicate.
It's really quite a financial colonoscopy when you go through these things, and it's just constant. Absolutely constant.
Let's talk about the cases that you're interested in talking about.
We talked yesterday, Gary and I did, but both Gary and I want to get your take on it. I wish there's prohibitions against it, but I watched the appellate argument in New York State on Harvey Weinstein. Because obviously we followed the case. I'm interested in it. There's some great issues. And boy, I'll tell you, there were 5 justices. The woman representing the Manhattan DA's office, I was very impressed with. She was exceptional. And that was as hot a bench. The term hot bench is when justices are engaged. They're asking questions. You're not getting a thought out sometimes because they're pounding at you.
Valerie Figueredo.
Yeah.
We'll just give her
give her
play.
a shout out. She's apparently going to become a U.S. magistrate. She was exceptional. And then for Harvey, there was a judge who's now retired, obviously, Commons, and he was obviously had written a brief or co-wrote a brief that was very persuasive because the judges took judging by their questions, you always hate to prognosticate, but I think you can tell certain things. They all were very concerned about the idea that some 30-odd acts were introduced into this sexual assault trial that really had nothing to do with the sexual assaults. For instance, one of the ones that the justice had cited that obviously came from the brief and the trial was that he had beaten up his brother. And he and his brother got in a fight. I mean, if you can, I was going to say, I mean, how many times, if you have brothers, you understand.
Well, it's also, we're doing this thing, and maybe it's the media's fault. We're getting into this, we're trying him. What are the charges? He's a bad dude.
Yeah.
That's not a charge. Being a douche is not a charge.
And by the way, they kind of got to that point where they said, what is dropping somebody off on the side of the road because you got in an argument with him in Europe have to do with whether or not he committed a forcible sexual act? What does beating his brother have to do with that? What is telling somebody I'm going to cut your genitals off if you don't, if you continue to do this?
It was kind of the same thing with Andrew Cuomo. It's like, look at all these people that say he's a douche.
Yeah.
Okay, but that you still don't get a rape case out of it or whatever out of it. It's all part and parcel, the sort of new world order of like, that guy's bad, that guy's not. That's not how the court system works. I feel like the media drives this shit
I think
all the
so
time.
too.
And I keep arguing, sorry, the only way to get a reasonable outcome for these kind of cases is to say to the defendant, sorry, you have to go sit in prison for a year. We'll let the media get on to September 6th or January 6th or Kyle Rittenhouse or whatever the fuck they're on to. Then we can all reconvene in 16 months when they're not all up our asses, and then we can figure out what went on here.
Well, that's
like going to be the new world order because he's going to go. He's now back, but to little fanfare, and now they can reasonably look at what's going on.
And I'll tell you what, one of the justices said: at what point are 32 acts overkill? Basically, and 32. When I say 32 acts in New York, they call it Molyneux. In California, it's 1101 evidence, and it's you get to introduce things that are basically character assassination. Now, it's introduced under the guise of a similar motive or identity or a signature, but really what it is character assassination.
Well, this is part and parcel of what you were saying with the George Floyd thing when they were putting people up on the stand going, how did it make you feel to see that man on the ground pleading, I didn't sleep for days. Well, okay, there you go.
No, exactly.
I don't know. That's not evidence. It's just someone felt bad. Everyone feels bad.
Everybody feels bad who watches it. I agree. And it's astonishing to me when you hear the argument. That's why I love listening to or participating in oral arguments at the appellate level, because it encapsulates exactly what the issues are in a very quick and kind of studied fashion, and they have to react. And like I said, the DA who we gave a shout out to was very good. Judge Commons returned at the end to the other issue, which I guess his feeling was that that's what's called structural error, that letting in all of the other extraneous things that arguably have nothing to do with the charges themselves, that could be harmless error, which means it wouldn't necessarily reverse the case. The structural error would be if the juror lied or didn't tell the truth about her book. There was a juror who had written a book, and when she was first questioned about it, she said it didn't involve predatory men.
How long has Weinstein been in? Has it been a year? Been 16 months? The COVID calendar has got me all spun out.
Exactly.
It's all Twilight Zone-y, clock going into outer space.
Well, he's out here
spinning.
now
He's out here.
Yeah, he's here in L.A., and arguably, if this case gets reversed in the next 30, 60, 90 days, he's been acquitted of some of the counts.
Does he go Con Air out here? Like how?
Yeah, they brought him out.
They brought him commercial?
No, I think they brought him private jet.
It's like the feds have...
they flew him on a federally owned private jet.
Oh, well, he's used to that.
Because I remember he needed a special equipment on there for whatever health bullshit he's dealing with.
And it wasn't the feds, because he was being held in state prison.
No, I'll bet we paid for that fucking flight.
Exactly.
God damn it. All right, so he's here.
He's here now. His trial here in L.A. is not going to be till next summer. So there's a world where he's out. If the case gets reversed, he's going to be out on bail out in New York.
That's the New York. Yeah, okay.
And then he's entitled to bail here in L.A.
So what do you think?
I think if I'm going to prognosticate, I think he gets a reversal. One of the things that came up was, were these things so prejudicial that he didn't get a fair trial? Well, he was acquitted. And as you know, we discussed the case in real time. Some of this evidence was really astonishing. I mean, there was evidence that one of the women who said it wasn't consensual had a 5-year relationship before and after.
Yeah, I think there's two. I mean, you tell me, but as a human, you can never stop being a human just because you're a juror. You know what I mean?
Right.
And for the same reason you would tell your client, put on a nice pastel cardigan when you come in versus a wife beater because you're pretty sleeved up and we'd like to present this image of you. Well, what are you doing? Well, you're trying to turn them into a good person. And the prosecutors are doing two things. They're doing the case and then they're doing the person. So they're doing the actual nuts and the bolts of dates and weapons and elements of the crime. But then there's the invisible part. No one wants to lock up a good guy. Everyone wants to lock up a bad guy. So, and in terms of the jury, I mean, I can tell you from dealing with a few women, you get a few women in there. I don't care if they never did anything. If he's a bad dude, then good. You know what I mean? Rotten prison. And conversely, I like that guy. Well, there's a lot of forensic evidence. Yeah, but I'm rooting for him. You know what I mean? So that's an issue. Well, and so if you're going to bring in a lot of bad dude evidence, that's going to be prejudicial, right?
And that's the whole idea. I always say that what the prosecutor's job is, demonize the defendant, make him seem or her seem inhuman. And the more you do with that, the more crap you throw up at them. You try to get the jury to not want to help the people because the jury is there. They're supposed to weigh the evidence, but at the end of the day, what they really want to do is they either empathize or they don't empathize. They either want to help or they don't want to help.
Or hurt. Right.
Yeah.
So, and, by the way, human beings are this way all the time when they go, that person... that person got you go, fuck them. They got what they deserve, or good, right. They had it coming. You know what I mean?
The other one,
if
they didn't do this, they did something else. That's
right.
One of my favorites.
They have prostate cancer. Yeah, well, the guy's an ass.
Right.
Screw him. I was just thinking about it. It's such a weird, it's like a weird process. Someone was telling me a story of everyone's stealing catalytic converters in cars now. I don't know if you're hip to this. It's a new thing. And there's a story about someone crushed by a car. They jacked it up. They slid under the jack stand, fell over the cinder block, and they got crushed by the car. I'm like, okay, good. But no, that's how people work.
Tell me about it. My father used to be the most virulent anti-death penalty guy once he left the DA's office. But the one thing that I swear to God he would have in the 80s, he would endorse the death penalty for anybody who broke into his car and stole his radio. I mean, that's
I heard in San Francisco, Gary can look, I heard it. Somebody tweeted me. They're just leaving the hatch open and leaving the windows
I can
open.
put up a picture for you.
You have it?
I got to tell you, when I burglar-proofed, when I put the kill switch in my truck all those years ago, I frequently left the door unlocked because I didn't want them bashing the window in.
There's nothing worse than when they bash in that window because you can never get that glass out.
Never.
I've had it happen so many times, and it's like when you see it, it's like, dang, I can't believe now I'm going to have that stuff all throughout the car.
It'll never go away.
Speaking of which, you know why? That's why you should have Geico, right?
Right.
Look at that. Do you own or rent your home or car? Sure you do. And I bet it can be hard work. You know it is. You know what's easy? Bundling your policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy. And boy, I'll tell you, you need one of those auto policies in this day and age. Go to geico.com. GEICO.com. Get a quote. See how much you could save. It's Geico Easy. Visit geico.com today. That's Geico, GEICO.com.
All right. So
Gary,
you think Weinstein is going to get out on bail?
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
And then what?
Then I think once he's out on bail, it's very difficult to defend cases where the client is in custody. I mean, it's a horrific situation.
It is?
Yeah, because the client is in a cement box. They get awakened at 3 or 4 in the morning. They get taken they get diesel therapy by the time they get to the courthouse. Then they have to dress and they get in there. And, then you got the prosecutors and the defense lawyers. We've slept in a nice bed. We've had, maybe worked out in the morning. It's just a different situation. If somebody is out of custody, and if jurors also see that, it's helpful, I think.
Yeah, you're in a business like F1, which is you're not shaving minutes, you're shaving tenths or hundredths. You know what I mean? You're trying to move the needle a couple of tenths, right?
That's exactly right.
And of course, whenever you compare Mark to an F1 driver, it's like spot on.
Well, I watched that Al Pacino Any Given Sunday thing where an inch here, an inch there.
Yes.
I always feel like that is exactly what a trial is. It's an inch here, inch there.
And that's what they do. And when I love stuff like the F1 cars for a while. So they're always trying to regulate these guys from cheating. And they're like Mexican drug cartels. Like whatever move you make, they got another move lined up for you. And they made one where they go, no adjustable wings. Like they didn't want the downforce stuff, front, rear, whatever, to be adjustable. So they made them. And I'll screw this up, but they went, okay, no adjusting wings. But they made it out of just the right thickness of composite. So like over 140 miles an hour, they would start bending down, thus making them de facto adjustable wings without any adjustment and skirting the rules. And then they have to catch up to them and go, okay, now you have to make this stuff this thick and it can't have more than this much deflection or flex or whatever in it. But you're trying to shave some tenths. In a racing format, that's what you'd be doing, and that's what you're doing at trial. So having the person, first off, you're in prison. If you're in a box, they're not deciding to take away your freedom. They're just going to decide to give you more box.
Exactly.
You're going home at the end of the trial. You're going to your box.
Right.
That's your home. You know what I mean? So there's like kind of that, like psychologically, like there's in versus not in, right?
Right.
And that's a little different equation. You know what I mean? Like if you said somebody's been in prison for X amount of months versus Bel Air, it's a little different decision whether to pull them out of the house in Bel Air or send them back to their cave kind of thing. And then you're right. Person's a little tired, a little broken down.
And Ace, to your point, I'm reading about these flexi wings. Lewis Hamilton, who's probably the most famous person in F1, says that he believes it shaves 3/10.
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying that's a huge deal, and he's really not happy about it.
Except for he has one, right?
I think that what I'm reading suggests that it was Red Bull who initially introduced these, so maybe after that
he
got
doesn't.
one.
He doesn't have one, or he would. If he's pissed,
Yeah,
he doesn't have one.
Yeah, I don't think he's a Red Bull driver. I believe he's Mercedes.
Well, you know, I
he's
saw.
Mercedes, yeah.
Did I talk about this? Because I saw it and I was mentioning to somebody. There's a rule in, I believe, the NFL where if the quarterback starts to go down, then
This is a college thing. Okay, so what you're talking about is there was a very famous play in the last few weeks where I believe the LSU quarterback pretended like he was going to slide and got kind of sideways and then stood back up and kept running. But the players had all pulled off because they didn't want to target him.
NFL's the same way, isn't it?
It is, but what Mark's talking about, they're introducing a rule change into the college game as a result of this play.
Yeah, it's kind of like with Lou Alcindor back when he was Lou Alcindor, where they eliminated the dunk because he was too successful at it.
Yeah, I don't know if they did it. I don't know if they did it because he was scoring more points. I don't think they liked the optics of a bunch of guys getting jammed on by a huge black man in the late 60s. I think, so they did this weird drop move where they'd put their hands above the rim and just drop it.
And then Kareem became proficient at the sky hook.
So you're shaving tenths, maybe hundredths, maybe thousands. That's you.
Every little thing that you can do, because I take the position that the defense always starts in a hole. You don't have the resources. You don't have the unlimited investigative abilities. You don't have the ability to kind of game the system that prosecutors have.
And so when someone's incarcerated, where are they physically? Are they in a holding prison?
Yeah, well, what happens is,
jail?
Like here, Weinstein's probably in what's called the Twin Towers downtown. Mm-hmm. When he goes to court, they'll wake you up at 2:30 or 3 in the morning.
Really?
Yeah.
That early?
They'll put him into a court line. Then they'll transport him to the courthouse, probably go underneath the courthouse, put him in the lockup in the courthouse, in the criminal courts building, then take him up, and I think he's on the 9th floor, so he's then put into the holding tank adjacent to the courtroom that he's in. It's a lot of movement and a lot of chains and a lot of handcuffs and a lot of going through a lot before you ever see a judge at 8:30 in the morning.
And then shower, shave, whatever?
Generally not. Generally not. I mean, sometimes you can get an order that you want to shower more frequently during trial, but not often.
So then you just show up. Would you convene with your lawyer?
Yeah, you'll be in the holding cell. Presumably your clothes will be in there. You can change out of your jail clothes if you've got a jury that's present into a suit. Generally, they won't let you wear shoes that have laces because that's you're a threat or it can be a threat. And you can put.
Normally, here it is a suicide threat, but you're saying like a threat to someone else.
Well, they say that the laces and
you could
strings
choke the
and
person.
you could choke somebody, so it's a safety issue apparently. And then you go into the courtroom. Sometimes you're handcuffed, sometimes you're shackled at your feet, and that's how you operate the case. Every time there's a break, generally you'll go back into the lockup again. You have to see it and not become cynical about it to understand how much of an obstacle it really is to getting the case done. It's very difficult to talk to your client for any prolonged period of time. It's very difficult to show documents. It's very difficult to have them digest the documents. They're carrying it around. They have to be careful because they don't want especially in high-profile cases, you don't want some snitch getting into your files to find out information so they can fabricate a supposed confession or something like that. There's a lot of things you have to think about and manage that you wouldn't if somebody was out.
So it's just in the world of tenths and hundreds and thousands, it just makes a pretty substantial difference to have somebody free when you're trying the case.
I often think it's the difference between winning and losing.
Really?
That's why that Al Pacino thing resonates, because he says the difference between winning and losing is an inch here, an inch there. It's so true.
And then, like we said, the optics as well.
Yeah, the optics is clear. Look, if the juror's in the hallway while they're waiting to come into the courtroom, and they see the client out of custody with his family walking down the hallway. Well, you're instructed as a juror, you're not to consider anything other than what's on the stand. Right. But you can't forget something like that. You can't, how they interact with their family, how they interact with their lawyer. Do they seem to be a good guy as they're holding themselves? Are they an asshole as they're sitting in the hallway? All of those things are, potentially jurors recognize. I mean, jurors check out people's shoes, lawyers' shoes. They check out whether you're wearing the same tie. They check out whether you've got a really nice suit or you don't have a nice suit. They think of all those things.
When do you think he might be out on bail? Is there a timeline?
I think you could see something in April. I think
April.
I think you'll see something in April.
All right.
Speaking of in custody,
we had a picture of the car. Sorry.
Yeah, where'd that go?
Anyway, the San Francisco story. San Francisco car owners leave car doors, trunks open to avoid break-ins. Now, I don't know how many of them there are, but they certainly, again, I've always kind of said this funny. I was talking to Dennis Prager, and he was saying to me, he reads a lot of books, and in the book flap, they used to have, in the book flap, they'd say, like, that he lives in Bethesda, Maryland, the author does, with his wife and 3 adoring children. And now it's like, she lives in Oakland, California, with her cats. And he said, they would never write you had cats. What do we give a shit if you have cats or not? But that it's now a thing. And I said, yeah, you drive it in L.A., they've got barbed wire around the freeway signs. These are bad signs. This is not a good sign. So these are the little signs. My feeling is I don't need to see test scores. I don't need to see the budget. I see people leaving their hatchback open of their SUV. That's all I need to know.
Well, I got off on Wilshire, off the 110 last night to get to the office. And that stretch there of encampments it's no longer just on the sidewalk next to the freeway. It's halfway through the street. I mean, you have to slow down and then kind of inch your way around. And it's really not, there isn't much room for kind of any 3 or 4 inches on each side of you. And I was thinking, I wonder how long before they just the streets just get turned over completely. That the encampment, if you've now eliminated one of the 2 lanes, why don't you just go all the way across?
So really, 1 lane gone.
1 lane is gone. I mean, I thought of taking a picture to show Gary because I was astonished that we've reached the point that sitting. I mean, the idea that there's a Korean Airlines building, which some guy built with no debt for over $1 billion. And in the shadow.
That's the big one that got sort of the Pepsi colors on the side.
Yeah, exactly. I always think of it as the Pepsi building. So in the shadow of that, if that building fell down, it would land right on this area. So whoever's paying at the Intercontinental, whatever rates for their hotel room, looks right down on this, and this is the street off of the major thoroughfare to get to that location, and obviously also engine company. And it's just been by all accounts, the city has given up. They've just abandoned it. They've given this over, and it's just become. I mean, mind you, if I took 4 square feet, just 4 square feet of the trash and stuff that is there, and I transported it over to my garage, the health department would shut me down. I'd be shut down tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, look.
You'd also be arrested for theft because that's their property, as Drew has explained to us.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
It's funny, in making the same argument, but in a different direction, I, too, was heading that direction yesterday afternoon, and I passed by the park with the lake and the swan pedal boats.
Right.
I can't remember.
MacArthur Park.
Is that MacArthur?
No,
the pedal boats is Los Feliz.
You're right.
Maybe there's a few different names. But anyway, I passed by that park. I had passed by that park in the past. You couldn't read the sign because people were drying their underwear on it. They were literally, I think they were literally bathing in the lake and trying their undergarments on. It was like Petticoat Junction. It's a deep cut, but at the beginning, they're up in the water tower with the ladies. Anyway, and then the place was a tent. Every square foot was filled with visqueen and tents and plywood and whatever. And at some point, somebody just went, fuck it, we're cleaning this shit up. And then 2 days later, it was back to how it was. And as I was passing by it yesterday afternoon, I looked at it to marvel at all the greenery and the no tents. It was a vista of tents the last time I went there. Now there are no tents. Well, then go ahead and do that everywhere, you fucking retards. Like, what? It's so doable. It's the most doable thing in the world.
The idea, I watched an interview with the ex-governor of California, and he was marching out.
Jerry Brown?
Jerry Brown. And I think Alec Michelson did the interview. And
he was a governor in the 70s and then again in the early
2000s.
2000s,
yeah. And, there's a lot of things, I basically broke with him when he wouldn't live up to his word on the one case that I had with him. But notwithstanding that, and I disagreed with a lot of what he was saying. But interestingly, one thing that he did say is that both he and his father were governors of this state, and his dad was Pat Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them had the situation where they watched, it would have been him in the 70s, where at one point they had 25,000 people in mental hospitals or getting mental health treatment in the state of California. And then, like overnight, those people were put on the street with no resources, no help, nothing whatsoever. And how can you not say that what is going on is not a mental health crisis? And why do we just continue to ignore it and try and cast it in other terms?
You'll know everything you know by just your own sort of eyes and ears. Like I was talking to Drew on the way in today, and we were yelling about COVID and more restrictions and mask mandates and blah, blah, blah. And I was doing my usual jag about the kids. And I was showing Drew the tape. I don't know if you have it, Gary, but I was laughing about Anderson Cooper and Sanjay Gupta. Like, and Anderson, well, what about the kids? You have to build a bubble around the kids. Here's all I'm saying. Would you like, everyone listening, would you like to be an expert in everything all the time? Here's how it works. Is COVID dangerous to kids? Answer. Do you know a fucking kid that was killed by COVID in the last 2 fucking years? Do you have a friend, a family member, somebody, schoolmate? Has your kid returned from school and go, he's not coming back for the 7th grade. He's in the ground. If you've not heard any of those stories, then it's not dangerous. You don't need Fauci. You don't need a graph. You don't need a fucking pointer laser thing. You don't need anything. That's all you need. Now, you go, is cancer dangerous? And then everyone goes, oh, my best friend had ovarian cancer when she was 33. She never saw her 34th birthday. Everyone has those stories. Right. Does anyone have any kid stories? Well, then it's not dangerous. That's how it works. And if anyone wants to know about the homeless, does anyone know any clear-thinking, non-drug addicted, smart people that are just sleeping on a fucking sidewalk because the mine closed or the book bindery place closed or the factories? Does anyone know that person? Has anyone heard of or seen that person? If the answer is no, then that's not who it is, just like kids in COVID. That's how you know. You don't have to hear about previously housed or the unhoused Americans or data. We don't need to see anything.
Wait until you see this, Gary. This is astonishing. Gary, do you have the ones that I texted you as well?
Yes, I do. Let's watch Adam's video first, and then we'll show up your pictures.
CNN just puts. They have two doctors. They have this Asian.
It's amazing how we have this mind meld because you wait until you see this is yours. Wait until you see the things I texted.
They have two. They have this Asian woman who's just doom and gloom, and then they have the guy with the bow tie and the kind of weird glasses and facial hair who's also the doom. They just put the two doom and gloomers on there. But anyway, she's going to tell us, I guess, about Omicron. I don't know. Here she is.
3 days to 5 days after they get back, just for that additional peace of mind.
I mean, here's the thing: if you have small children at home, you do need to take extra precautions that other people might not need.
I mean, you got to put a bubble around them, essentially. I mean, that in some ways, that's the philosophical.
Okay, you got to build a bubble around small kids. It doesn't do anything to kids, you fucking quack.
Well, get this.
What's Anderson Cooper? By the way, Anderson, what the fuck do you know about kids? All you do is blow your boyfriend all day. You don't know shit about kids.
Gary,
you got to protect the kids.
So I'm watching something, and I was astonished that this was being played. I wish Gary had it. Let's see if he's got it. Yeah. Cornell shuts. Take a look at this. I think when I was taking it, you see it's surging nationwide. Right? Okay. And you see what the headline is,
Cornell's in Ithaca or upstate New York or wherever.
They shut it down, right?
Yeah.
Virtually every case has been found in fully vaccinated students. Right?
Right.
Okay, so we've shut down the campus. Everybody is vaccinated.
Right.
Look, we have not seen evidence of significant disease in our students to date.
Right.
Okay.
So what is it?
What? Then here we go. There you go. Take a look. Take a look at these numbers. Student cases this week, 1135. On-campus vaccination rate, 97% with no significant disease. Let me posit a hypothetical. That the vaccinations, and by the way, we've now eclipsed 800,000 deaths for those of you who say that we've vaccinated our way out of it. And they're now, I just read as we were coming in, they're not recommending vaccinations for 2 to 5 because no clinical trial shows that a two-stage booster does anything, or a two-stage vaccine does anything.
Well, wait. That's why they're testing a 3-stage vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Now, mind you, 97% vaccinated, no significant disease, over 1,000 cases. What is your conclusion at that point?
Well, they're all vaxxed up. It's either this is a very mild strain that's easily spread but doesn't pack much wallop, which is, by the way, that's the way these things evolve. People don't understand. The virus doesn't want to kill the host. It doesn't spread if it kills the host. You want to live with the host and be spread while the host is living and making the rounds. And then also vaccines offer some level of protection from hospitalization and outcome, but not from the spreading of it.
Right. So guess what? If it turns out that the data reported out of South Africa seems to support this, that the vaccinations played a part in the diminution of death and hospitalizations, and people can argue that, but I think that that's probably a good thesis. Are we at the point where we just keep doing more boosters, or have we reached the point where the other article I read yesterday was, how do you tell the difference between COVID and the common cold? And I thought, well, isn't that wonderful that now we don't even know how to tell the difference, because we're going to have to live with it. It's going to kind of peter out in the sense that it no longer kills or hospitalizes. And all of the doom and gloom, as you say, is like we're still looking through the prism of Delta, or we're looking through the prism pre-vaccination.
But what about the kids? That's what I want to know.
Give them a third shot.
But Anderson Cooper says we got to. No, Sanjay Gupta
said put them in a bubble.
We got to put a bubble around those kids. That the entire network has been summed up in a 14-second exchange. Anderson Cooper going, what about the kids? We got it. First off, I want to see that again. What was Anderson Cooper saying? Anderson Cooper was like, well, with the kids, it's a different protocol. What different protocol? You've been vaxxed, you wear fucking mask everywhere, and you wash your hands every 10 seconds. What is different? You guys tell me what the different protocol should be with a kid versus a bachelor. Sorry.
And also to get a test 3 days to 5 days after they get back, just for that additional peace of mind.
I mean, here's the thing, if you have small children at home, you do need to take extra precautions that other people might not need.
Like
you
what?
gotta put a bubble around them, essentially. I mean, that in
All
some
right.
ways, that's the philosophical.
You know what I was saying to Drew? I had this thing. I'm interested in your take on this concept. I was talking to Drew on the ride in, and I said, he said, we're talking about Barbara Ferrer and a new round, and then we're going to get some more distancing, some more masks, some more locking down and whatever. And he said, people are, they're getting a little burnt out, and they're pushing back. And I said, it's not a burnt out and a pushback. That's what we say. And you go, well, I'm tired of the state or the city or the man, tell me what to do, and I'm burnt out and I'm pushing back. No, they don't look at it as dangerous. Because I said to Drew, I put my seatbelt on every time I get in a car. There's a law. Put your seatbelt on. Click it or ticket. You shall get a ticket. The man mandates that I put my seatbelt on, otherwise I'll get a pretty hefty fine. I happily do it. I don't get burnt out on it. I don't go, I'm tired of it. I perceive it as an actual threat. Which statistically, of course it is.
It is, of course.
So it's not that they're burnt out, meaning like everyone who does everything at sea does the same thing every time. Every time a person operates a small aircraft, they do the same safety and flight checks. They don't get burnt out on. They get burnt out on it because the exact same amount of danger exists every time they get into the small airplane or go to sea or get in your car. But it's all statistically the same, and we all happily and dutifully go along with it. And if you've been driving for a long time or flying for a long time or skippering for a long time, you've been doing it for decades. No problemo. It's not we're burnt out on it. We've seen it for what it is, and we're not listening anymore.
Did you see our governor, our blessed governor, yesterday painting over graffiti by the freeway? Did you see this?
I did.
Yeah. While wearing a mask, which by the way, outdoors, which by the way, the mask came down underneath the nose as he's wearing it.
It also pissed me off that it was rush hour and he was blocking an entire lane of the 101 for his photo op. Fuck you, man. The traffic sucks already.
And he also ran out there. He gave it 2 scrapes with a roller pole and ran back. Because the thing that's comical is obviously COVID is not an issue, but getting hit by a car is actually a real issue. God, if one brave American you could say you were texting or that you had a seizure just quickly. We could end it quickly. God, I know somebody tweeted me that because he sat in the studio and famously sat here when I asked him about the endless traffic and what we're going to do about it. And he famously said he saw a billboard he liked or a bumper sticker.
Billboard?
Saw a billboard. This was his answer. Mark, could you imagine you employ a lot of sharp people? Could you imagine employing a person that answered this way when I said, what are we going to do about this problem of traffic? And he said, I'll tell you what, I saw a billboard I liked. It said, you are not in traffic. You are traffic. Would you hire that person? You go, oh my God, this guy's going to blow the lid off of every cold case. Would you hire that person? No, you go, the person doesn't track. We're telling him there's a problem, and he's just telling us we're in it.
I don't understand what we're doing. I don't get it. I don't understand what we're doing in the state. I don't understand what we're doing in the city. None of it tracks to me. I mean, he was heralded as a genius this week because he said, we're going to enact a law that lets private citizens get bounties on guns the same way Texas did with abortion.
Right.
And that, oh my God, you would have thought that this was the greatest thought that had ever been articulated by anybody ever. And it was like, no, that's just all you're doing is mirroring the idiocy of the other law. So why do that? Why not just confront or understand where we're headed? Because that would require nuance. It would require thinking. It would require some depth.
Well,
of analysis.
Garcetti's on the way out.
Yeah,
so
he's on his way to see if he can replicate downtown LA in Calcutta.
Where? So who are we going to get to fill his mighty slippers?
I like Kevin De Leon. I like the city councilman so far that's from the San Pedro area who actually has a plan to deal with encampments because he understands. You know, one of the things that's happened is there has been this embrace of we don't do anything, that somehow letting the mentally ill and letting people who would rather be addicted on the streets, letting them do that. For there was a period of time when that was just kind of the politically correct thing to do. Then they started to realize, hey, wait a second, my constituency doesn't approve of this. You know, even in L.A., which is as left as you were going to get of any county in the U.S., people don't approve of this. This is you can't go to work. You can't, if you're a female in downtown L.A., you can't feel safe. I mean, you just can't.
I've said this many times, and I grew up with this person, and my mom was this way. There is something about the left, and it's a connection to nature. And the nature is step back and just let nature kind of take over. Like, let people do their thing. Like, step back, step off, like criminals or homeless, or just step back, and it'll kind of, nature will kind of rush in. And I said, look at your fucking lawn. It's okay, just step back. Stay out of it. No watering, no weeding, no fertilizing, no nothing. Just fucking step back. Your front lawn is a shit show in 4 weeks.
Exactly.
And in a year, you don't fucking recognize it. And in 3 years, you won't be able to see the fucking front of your house. There'll be just a fucking weed shit show in your front yard. That's what nature does. Just step back, let it take its course. That's exactly what we did with the homeless problems. Like, hey, man, these people just living in nature, just living amongst, just kind of sit back and let them. Cities that have done that with crime and say, hey, just cops, hey, just step it back. Just move out of the way. Just let people just kind of live. That's nature. That's their thought. And you'll just the exact same as your lawn. It's a piece of shit 1 year, the fucking piece of shit. And then the deal is, and the metaphor is the same way, which is if you would like to tend to your lawn, then that's going to take about 20 minutes a week. If you'd like to step back for 4 years, we're going to have to get some heavy equipment in here at a certain point. Now it is a shit show. Now there are plywood shanty towns. Now we need bulldozers. Like you have homeless guy here, homeless guy there. Hey, got to keep walking. Can't, no plywood, no shopping carts, no viscreen. That can be policed. That's 20 minutes a day.
Well,
step back for 5 years.
Talk to anybody, and everybody knows them. I mean, I was thinking, I saw Mia last night, and it made me think of this. Talk to anybody who's got or has had a severely mentally challenged person in the throes of a mental health crisis. You're not doing them any favors. You're not helping that person by stepping back.
Well, also, you're not doing them any favors by declassifying them. So you're having severe mental problems and severe addiction problems, and then both.
Right.
And we're calling you previously housed. So it'd be like if you were clinically depressed and we called you a napper. Well, no, you are clinically depressed. You're not being, if it was your wife or your kid or whatever, that person needs help, not to be reclassified as a napper.
Right. And Drew's the perfect guy to listen to about this, because he understands the kind of insidious nature of addiction and how that interplays and the kind of the dance that goes on. And this is something that you just that's why I like your nature argument, because it could only go, to quote you one more time, only go one way, which is the way that it's gone. I mean, what else do you expect?
Well, not only, but I'm saying, here's what I'm saying. If and you would like to, with homeless people or your law enforcement, if you'd like to experiment for 2 days of what happens if we just step back, once you see which way the fucking lawn is going, you have to get involved. That's what I'm saying. We stepped back, 9 years ago, and we stepped back and went, hey, man, we can't come in here and police all this and let them be and let nature live. After about 2 days of that, we should have intervened. We didn't. And homelessness or your lawn, once you give it 5 years, now it's a big thing. It's a big issue. Of
course it is. And then we keep repeating the same cycle, which is, for those of us old enough to remember the 80s and the 90s, we think we're going to police our way out of this, where you're putting police officers in a situation that they're ill-equipped to deal with. They're not there. How are they trained to deal with the mentally ill? Why are they dealing with the mentally ill? I mean, why are we sending cops to do a job that should be a mental health professional? Which leads me to the last case we're going to talk about, which is Kim Potter. Do you have that, Gary? So Kim Potter is the police officer who shot and
she ended up killing Daunte Wright. This was in Brooklyn Center in Minnesota. This happened while the George Floyd Derek Chauvin trial was going down. She yelled taser several times and claims that she thought she had pulled her taser, but she pulled her service weapon and shot the gentleman in the chest. So the prosecution has rested in her case, and the defense started their case, and she took the stand. And this is some of her testimony.
What's the prosecution want? What are they going for?
First and second degree manslaughter are her charges.
Oh, manslaughter.
If memory
right.
serves. All right, here we go.
And what happened next?
They're still struggling, and I can see Sergeant Johnson and the driver struggling over the gear shifts because I can see Johnson's hand, and then I can see his face.
And you knew Johnson for many years before this, is that right?
Yes.
And by looking at his face at that point in time, what did you interpret it to mean?
He had a look of fear on his face. It's nothing I'd seen before.
Wait, pause it, Gary.
Did you?
I say this? I heard a study recently that men cry 4 times a month and women only cry 3 times a month.
Really?
That was a study.
That's a bullshit study.
that I heard. It seemed excessive to me.
By the way, do we have a picture of her before this started? Because
not right now.
Yeah, she looks dramatically different now.
She has aged a bit.
The stress is really taking.
Yeah, but when Rittenhouse was crying on the stand, there was like fake tears. But when a woman cries, we don't do fake tears. I say that's a double standard, right? Isn't that a double standard?
Well, there's also a tape. I don't know if Gary.
I don't know what she went on to say. I saw some of it. You want to hit play again, or she's going to keep crying?
Anything when you saw this? What did you do?
We were struggling. We were trying to keep him from driving away. It just went chaotic.
All right. It's hard to watch. I don't know what the case. What is the case?
So this is why I get so frustrated about this. You watch this, you have some empathy for her naturally because she's a police officer. I don't think she got up in the morning intending to kill somebody who she stopped. And she grabs, if you believe her, she grabbed her gun instead of her taser. We can argue whether or not that's plausible. What bugs me about this case, do you know what they pulled over Daunte Wright for? Having an air freshener from his rearview mirror and expired reg tags. I mean, my father used to say there's more guys in state prison for having expired registration or plates than any other offense. And by the way, they then found a misdemeanor warrant.
How is the air freshener a factor here?
The air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror apparently is a violation, as it is in other states, of the windshield law.
It's weird.
Obstructing your view.
Yeah, I get it, but half the people stick their phone on their window.
I believe that's illegal in those states as well.
Oh, we don't have. Hold on. Someone's got to find Newsom and go, there's a law
that we don't have.
that they have in other places. And he's going to be outraged. He's going to be like, hold my calls. What law is this? You know those Christmas trees? Yeah, they're legal here. What?
What?
No. Hold on. We have the most laws. No. Minnesota's. I'll show Minnesota. I'll make 5 laws. I'm going to show them.
Well, I mean, it's just. You wonder, did it really require this level of force for pulling somebody over, for having air freshener hanging from their rearview mirror, then finding out there's a supposed misdemeanor warrant or something like that? That's, I guess I'd like to live in a community where that's when we need to escalate to deadly force.
Well, not to go against this, but in a way, this is kind of broken window stuff. This is all right. He's got the air freshener, stupid, but you have expired tags, and then you pull them over, and then you find out there's something else going on. And now we're getting into the broken window thing, which is, well, that by that same theory, it'd be, well, who knows what else or what this guy has in his future, or what he did that we don't know about. It's essentially that. But I agree, the air freshener is pretty insane.
And I'll tell you
to me there might be. To me, I feel like there's liability for the company that makes the pistol taser thing, and there's also liability for the training because it's the taser.
Wait. What do you mean liability for the company that makes the pistol taser thing? She was she had both on her hip, and she pulled the wrong one. Right.
But making it, like, let's say, if you could say, here's standard police issue 9mm pistol, right? And then somebody said, we found out that your taser thing was based on a standard 9mm pistol or something. We could go, well, that's a fucked up design. Like that. That's confusing. I feel the same way with push and pull on the front of the restaurant. PU. I hit that thing with some momentum, bang, every time. It's a shoddy design. But what I'm saying is well, first off, in a world, Gary, where everyone can sue everyone for everything, and whoever makes those things has much deeper pockets than the officer that makes $51,000 a year, who knows? But I would also say that having in a world where there's an adrenaline drop and you're reaching down and grabbing something, there should be a very distinct difference in terms of not only what it looks like. I know it's yellow or orange or something like that. It should feel very different in your hand than a pistol would, because you're looking at the suspect and reaching with the adrenaline dump. Now, I'm sure in the training, for instance, you couldn't have it on the same side of the holster. It'd have to be on another side of the holster. But I'd like to see a picture of it. But I could also tell you it should feel. There should be a nub or something in the handle. Like, so it should feel very different.
One of the things that was frustrating, and obviously because it's personal to me, that Dylan Taylor case where we've played the tape where the cop in 22 seconds executed our client, and by 2-1, the 10th Circuit, in a civil case, said that's okay, you can't even sue the guy. And how is that possible when here you pick the wrong thing and execute a guy and you're getting charged criminally? I just think the kind of the stark contrast of those is astonishing to me.
Well, I think we're going to argue that she's incompetent. We can't really argue about intent here. I mean,
you're not grossly negligent.
Right, gross negligence. So what's she looking at? And we're looking at the two. And yeah, if just the end was hanging out of a holster, it could feel similar if you're in a hurry. The pistol, the trigger, the grip, it's a different color, but you're not looking. You're just grabbing.
Yeah, I just don't understand why this escalated to the use of even a taser for somebody who's charged with or pulled over for air freshener on their windshield.
He struggled. I mean, he resisted.
Their argument is, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but the defense's argument is that they were scared that once the cops were in the vehicle struggling with him, that he would be able to take off and drag them down the street. Yeah. That's what they're trying to lean on.
There's a lot of, look, here's the thing with the cars. There's tons of cops and spec. We thought he was going to ram us. We thought he was going to run a car's a weapon, blah, blah, blah. So they will shoot you pretty quick when you're jumping back in the car or backing the car up or coming near them or turning the car around or whatever. Like, understand, folks, the car is a weapon in the eyes of the cop, in the eyes of the law, and in the eyes of the jury. All you have to do is go, I thought he was going to run me over. Right. Or I thought he was going to take off and run someone else over. Whatever it is, it's not provable, but it's plausible, and thus you'll walk. So how do you think this one's going to end?
I do not see her getting convicted. I really don't. I think that first of all, I hate to be sexist about it. I think jurors are oftentimes easier on females. I think that this is somebody who, like I said, didn't get up in the morning to go to kill somebody. And she did. There's another tape that I've heard, which is her it probably came from the body cam right after the shooting, where she's either the greatest actress in the world or she's in immense distress. She realized what's happened, and she is just out of her head. And
I think there's another component to this, sadly, that speaks to the result you're talking about, which is LeBron James isn't tweeting about it. CNN isn't going nuts about it. Kamala Harris is not chiming in. All the usual suspects, Maxine Waters, like somehow optically it's white on black, but it's a female and it's kind of under their radar.
Yeah,
so they're not going to burn the town down.
It's been covered by kind of true crime areas and other kind of bubbled up, but it certainly doesn't have the traction of any of these more recent trials at all.
Agreed. All right, let me tell you about Nordvpn, fastest VPN in the world. You don't even notice it's running. Switch your virtual location and bypasses geo restrictions to access Netflix and other streaming platforms up to 60 countries, by the way, so you can see it all. Next generation encryption and a strict no logs policy protects you from hackers and from snoopers. Public Wi-Fi is dangerous. It's a hotbed for hackers. NordVPN's end-to-end encryption protects you on the go. NordVPN saves you money, and you can find discounts in other regions of the world. By switching your virtual location, you can pay for less subscriptions. That's what Gary does.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the best.
He's an international traveler with NordVPN, right, Gary?
That's right. Cyber Month deal. Go to nordvpn.com/doubt or use code doubt to get up to 73% off your NordVPN plan and a bonus gift. The price drops down from $89 to $79 and you get 1 month free, so your total discount is 73%. Be quick because this offer is for a limited time only. It's equivalent to buying a cup of coffee every month, a small price to pay for premium cybersecurity and access to vast amounts of entertaining content. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if NordVPN is not for you, so there's no risk. NordVPN.com/doubt.
All right, this Wednesday, Thursday in Portland, Oregon, Helium Comedy Club, December 22nd, 23rd. Do a stand-up show, do a live pod there, 2 shows a night. Also, you can check out our YouTube channel. It's subscribe to youtube.com/reasonabledoubt podcast as well, and you can check out AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows. What do you got, Mark?
I got go down to, if you're in Palm Springs, go by Gigi's, open, doing great stuff and putting out great food. Downtown, come kind of wield your way or do hurdles over the homeless and get into Engine Company 28. Want to thank the LA Fire Department last night for blocking off Figueroa for the office Christmas party. Also the 10E Mediterranean Tapas. And if you're in New York City, Prova at Grand Central Terminal or the Moxie Hotel in Times Square.
So until next time, Adam Crow for Mark Garriga saying Mahala.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.